Welcome back, Super Friends. Today we are going to learn how to write numerical expressions. What you'll need is your math notebook or folder, pencil to write with, and don't forget that super brain of yours. Stay tuned for the video. All right, Super Friends, we are going to write numerical expressions. What this means is that we're going to be given words, like a verbal phrase is what it's called. We'll be given a verbal mathematical phrase, and we have to write the expression using numbers and symbols. So we are going to write down this table that we have here. This is kind of to help us with our with our deciphering what the words mean when it comes to numbers and symbols. And deciphering means like trying to figure out. So that's what we're going to do. If you've ever been into a classroom, or my classroom specifically, you'll know that there are words that we have on a chart that mean addition. There are words that we have on our chart that mean subtraction. We have some for multiplication and some for division. Those are all of our operations. You can see that's the left-hand side of the chart where it says operation. These are the different operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Then we have verbal phrases, which means these are like what we'll see as examples. And then this is what the expression will look like. So if we go through these for addition, the sum of 2 and a number x, we're saying that the number, or the x, is going to be a number in this case instead of a letter. And then saying the sum of means that you want to add those things. So the sum of 2 and a number x. What I've noticed also is that whenever we see the word sum of, that means that we put it in parentheses. So normally I see this whenever I am dealing with sum of. Same as difference of. That's why I put parentheses around those words on this chart so that you guys can also know that. But again, the next example for addition is the number n plus 7. That's just saying we're writing the letter n and then we do plus 7. Again, they give us examples for subtraction, number y minus 5, then they give us the expression. The difference of a number n and 6, again, the word difference would have parentheses around it. That just means that whatever it's telling us after the word difference before a new sentence is what goes inside that parentheses. Same as what it did for sum when we were doing addition. Multiplication, the word that we worry about is product. That one has the parentheses around it. So this one says 12 times a number y. With multiplication, we get the lucky privilege to not have to write an x for multiplication, because you see we've been using x before. To not have to write the number x or letter x or put a little dot, because for multiplication sometimes you see it as an x or a dot, like in the middle of things. Like it might say 2 times 3 times 4. All of that is saying times. That's an example. So it's saying 12 times a number y. You just put 12y. That means times. Especially when you get into middle school, you'll start practicing that more. 1/3 of a number x. It says x, but it shows y, so we're going to change that to say y so that we're not confused. Again, you're putting it together. And then moving on to division, whenever we see the word quotient, that means that we put parentheses around it. But if it said the quotient of a number k and 2, that means what they're actually saying is k divided by 2. Or you might see it say k/2 if it's written on like a Google form or something like that. Those are all examples. These are all saying the same thing. All right, make sure we write this chart, and then we're going to go on to our first example. First example says an expression is described in words. Subtract 12 from 23, then multiply by 6. Create the expression using numbers and symbols. So if we look back up to what we said, thankfully they just told us subtract and multiply, right? So we know we're subtracting. Obviously we can't say 12 minus 23 because that's not how we subtract in elementary. That doesn't make any sense for us. So the bigger number is going to go first in this case. So we're going to do what it says first. I always like to write on top of what I see, but we'll write in the box soon. This is just kind of like a rough draft, which means I'm practicing before I write the real thing. So it says subtract 23 from 12, then multiply by 6. Whenever they want us to do something first and then they tell us to do something next, like if they use the transition word then, that means it's coming after it. That means that the first thing that they told us to do should go first. So remember, if we did PEMDAS, what goes before subtraction? Multiplication, which is here. So if we just wrote this like this, we would be doing 12 times 6 first, then we would we would take that 23 and subtract that 12 times 6, which that won't make any sense because 12 times 6 is, I believe, 72. 12 times 6 is 72. I can't do 23 minus 72. That doesn't make any sense. So they're telling us to do the subtraction first. And since that's the case, that means that we have to put a parentheses around what we want to go first. Remember, we have to do parentheses first. So the way that we're going to write this is 23 minus 12 in the parentheses, then we times 6. That's what that all said. So they're telling us what to do first here. We had to put it around parentheses in order for us to do it first. Then we multiply by the 6. All right, let's do the next example. All right, this one says an expression is described in words. Add 167 and 55, then multiply by 6. Again, I want to put my PEMDAS so I can remember what I'm doing. It says add, and then it says the word then multiply. So that means that they want us to do this first, then they want us to do this last. So if I'm adding first, I'm doing 167 plus 55 first, then multiply by 6. So again, there goes those handy dandy parentheses so we know what to do first because the words tell us that they want this to go in a specific order. If they just said everything, then we could have did 55 times 6, then add 167 to it, but that's not what they told us. They told us to add first, then they told us to multiply by 6. So we have to take what we added and multiply by 6. All right, next example. All right, an expression is described in words. Divide 126 by 6, then add the product of 5 and 7. Ooh, this one has a whole bunch more to do. So obviously we know the divide goes first because that word then helps us know that we have to put that in parentheses because that goes first. Then it says add, and then it says the product of. Remember, let's go back to our chart. That product of means it has parentheses around it too. You see? That product has parentheses around it. So that means whatever it's telling us to get the product of, which means the answer to a multiplication problem, whatever it's telling us to get the product of, we need to put parentheses around it. So let's go back down. It wants the product of 5 and 7. So that means this is what it's going to look like. First set of parentheses is 126 divided by 6, or the way that you would see it on a Google form would be 126/6. That means divide. Okay. I'm just showing you examples of what you could see. Then it's saying plus because it says add. Then it's saying product of, and anytime I see product of, I know I'm doing parentheses because that's what I wrote in my chart to help me remember. So I'm doing product of 5 and 7, which means I'm doing 5 times 7. And that would be it. So this is what these are the two possible ways that we could see it. It would be our division inside parentheses because they tell us to do that first. Then it says to add that answer to the product of 5 and 7. So that means you're multiplying 5 and 7, and then whatever that answer is, you're adding it to what you divided first. All right, let's do our last example. All right, example number 4 says an expression is described in words. Double 77, then add the sum of 12 and 9. All right, so words that I think are important to note, and this is just us doing a little side note. Double means you're multiplying by 2, remember? Because anytime I say double something, you add it twice. That means times 2. And then half. Think about what half means. Half means you're doing what? Dividing by 2. You're taking that and you're breaking it in half. You're dividing it by 2. Those things are super important. Thirds. would be we're either multiplying by 3 or dividing by 3. It just depends on what it says. Fourths are the same. So just remember those things. Double means times 2. Half means divide by 2. That's important to note. You probably will see those types of words in your questions. All right, so in this case, they said double 77. There goes that beautiful word then, which is super helpful in letting us know that we have to do this first thing first. Then it says then add, and then that handy dandy word sum of 12 and 9. Let's go back to our chart because I think I saw parentheses around the word sum of. So back to our chart. Yep. Ding, ding, ding. Sum of, or sum has parentheses around it. So let's go back down, put the parentheses where they belong, around what it's telling me to get the sum of, and then I write it down. So I'm doing 77 times 2 because I'm doubling it. Then I'm adding the sum of 12 and 9. Remember, sum means add. All right, and that's how we would do it. Use these notes to help you with your questions today.